My name is Shezek Bal. Been in the industry for decades, and I'm so happy to be included in this series, the PPA presents I Found Myself in Publishing. This series is called I Found Myself in Publishing. And I found myself in publishing. So it's great to have this opportunity to discuss that topic with other individuals within the industry, especially those who I've met through the PPA. Mm-hmm. Tell me a little bit about yourself.
So I also found myself in publishing, no surprise. I work at Haymarket Media Group. Mm-hmm. I am a studio manager, so I make podcasts for my job.
Wow.
Yep.
No pressure now.
No, I'm usually on the other side of the mic, so this is horrendous for me. I did do 2 years, I think, of hosting a podcast during the pandemic while I was on an editorial brand, and then quickly moved to the production side when I realised I hated editing my own voice.
But you did 2 years of it?
Yeah.
And you gave me 0 pointers before we started recording?
Well, you've got your own podcast. You don't need pointers.
Come on, I could do a little bit of guidance. Okay, so we met through a bit of coaching that I was doing for the Next Gen Board. Mm-hmm. So what is the PPA Next Gen Board?
So the PPA Next Gen Board is a board that the PPA have set up, and we are a group of individuals under the age of 30 who all work for PPA member publishers. And it's essentially a board created to bring the voices of the younger generation that work in publishing to the PPA to work alongside the main board and sort of action some of the things that we want to see in our industry, some of the changes that we're after, so that we're essentially, planning for our future careers in publishing and helping to be part of the change that we want.
What's the change that you want? What does that look like? Have there been any examples of things you managed to bring forward?
My group is looking at talent and bringing new talent into the industry, which this podcast is going to do a fabulous job at.
Thank you.
And not only just bringing in new talent, but bringing in a more diverse group of people, because I think the view of publishing is still that it is very white dominated. So bringing in more people from different backgrounds, just so that we can bring more perspectives into our industry, because if you only have the voice of one type of person, you're not really getting an unbiased, broad scope of the news and whatnot.
Yeah, no, I can totally appreciate that. And what sort of initiatives have come out of it? So we've got this podcast. Are there any other sort of initiatives that have come out to help champion that as a strategy?
Yeah, so we are, I don't know if we're allowed to talk about this, but I'll say it.
Well, you can edit it out after.
Yeah, exactly. So we've created a website which is going to have things like a jargon buster on it, so that people who aren't familiar with publishing can look at it and sort of get an understanding of different publishing terms. It's going to have a jobs board on it. It's going to have like a sort of like an aptitude quiz, so that you can take sort of like a personality quiz and find where you best sit in publishing, whether it's, as a writer, a designer, marketing, sales, stuff like that. And then alongside that, we've also got a sort of like a talent campaign for socials and stuff like that, with the idea basically being that people will come to work for PPA member organisations if they can see that they are reflective of their type of person. So we've got a diverse range of people in the campaign, so that we then attract more of that.
I think attracting more of that sort of talent is definitely a need for it. You're right. There's an assumption, exactly as you said, that there's a particular diaspora of individual within publishing, and you're testament to the fact that, of course, there is diversity within the industry. So why not attract more of that talent? So that's a great initiative. I'm really pleased to hear that you're backing that. So how did you personally start in publishing?
So I sort of accidentally fell into it. I didn't really know what publishing was when I first started. I was meant to go to uni. I got into East Anglia to study English Lit and philosophy, and then on like results day, when I opened my results, I was like, yeah, okay, I actually get to go to the university that I wanted to go to. I kind of entered like a bit of an internal panic, and I was just like, what am I going to do with an English lit degree and a philosophy degree? And then a day before I was meant to start, I called them up and I said, I actually don't know if I want to do this anymore. Can you please take me off your list? I'm not coming in ever. And they were just like, okay, well, maybe we'll call you up next year and you might have changed your mind. I was just like, don't bother. I don't think I will change my mind. I don't think uni's for me. I'm kind of sick of being in education now. I kind of just want to go out and live my life in the real world. And I think I felt like that because for my last year of sixth form, I had been working at Thorpe Park and I loved working. It was like you got to meet new people, you got to earn money and have fun while you're doing it. And Thorpe Park is, such a great place to have a job.
Absolutely.
As it is. And I was
Did you get discounts to get in? Did you get to go on all the rides?
Yeah, so we got 20 free tickets every year that we worked there. And in the mornings, we'd sneak on a few rides, and at the end of the day, we weren't meant to, but we did. And they held like staff socials and stuff where they would keep some of the coasters open. So once park closed afterwards,
I feel like we're really pitching working at Thorpe Park now.
Oh yeah, no, okay, moving on. So then eventually I was just like, well, Thorpe Park isn't going to be my career. I need to find what my actual career is. And I started looking at apprenticeships. And through the government apprenticeship website, I found an apprenticeship at Haymarket. And, I lived 10 minutes away from the office, never knew it existed, never knew what it was. And it was for a publishing assistant. And I was just like, well, that sounds interesting. I'm sure I can do it. And it was all very it was a business administration apprenticeship qualification. And I thought, well, I'm really organised. I'm sure I can do that. So I applied for it. I got it. And I started in August 2017. I finished my coursework in about 6 months and then had to do it all over again because the apprenticeship was meant to last a year. And they were just like, well, we can't sign you off now. So we're going to need you to keep doing more college work for the next 6 months just to say that you've done a full year of your apprenticeship. After that, I got a full-time role. I did a year as, I don't really know how to describe it. I was making directories. So I was doing print layout. And then that was for maternity cover for someone that was on my team. Once she came back, I then was 50% doing the role that I was doing as an apprenticeship and 50% helping with the relaunch of a brand. And then I went full-time on that during the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I then told my editor, I was like, I'm a little bit bored working from home, doing the exact same thing every day. I'd like to start a podcast for our brand. And it was a architecture and interior design brand. And at the time, we had just launched a Women in Architecture award scheme. And I said, well, we could do like a podcast around that and have like amazing female architects and interior designers come on. And, it's called Women Build and all of that. And my editor said, I'm going on holiday for a week. If you can put together a plan and tell us how we can do it for basically nothing, then yeah, okay, I'll pitch it to the business director. She came back from holiday. I had 6 episodes worth of content filled out. I had guest speakers that I'd already contacted and said, do you want to get involved? And they'd all said yes. And then we did it. And then we launched another podcast because, had to get the men involved to run alongside it. And then as that was all happening, little did I know, Haymarket was building a podcast studio. And so when that was getting built, I then started schmoozing, who is now my manager, and trying to get myself in there. And once the studio was built, I made sure that I booked out time to train myself up on how to use it. So I was best placed to run the studio. And that's where I am now.
Sounds like a fantastic story, by the way. That it's like you almost created this role. Or not even almost, you actually created this role for
I mean,
yourself.
it's quite nice as well because I get to work with editorial teams, which I did a bit of during my time on World Architecture News. I also get to manage a team. I get to look after budgets and stuff like that, which is more what I was doing during my apprenticeship role. So it's kind of like a perfect mix of all of the jobs that I've had at Haymarket, which is quite nice.
It's very entrepreneurial.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. It's amazing. Oh, I love that story. Okay, so what would you say are the key milestones and highlights of your career so far? I mean, that's a huge one.
Yeah.
Can you top that?
I can actually.
Okay, go on.
Probably my proudest week in my career is during the summer of 2023, and Haymarket has their like internal award schemes, right? So they had just launched the People Awards. Normally they have the Work Awards, which is celebrating all of the great work we do. But in 2023, they decided to launch the People Awards to celebrate the people and not just the work. It's split into divisional and global, right? So HBM, which is Haymarket Business Media, which I work for, if you win those awards, then you go to the global stage, and then you compete against all of the different divisions and all of the different countries that Haymarket operates in. And I won the regional award for emerging talent that year. And then a week later, it went to the global stage, and I won the global award. And then the same week, I was also appointed to the PPA Next Gen Board. So it was a big week.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's
Lots of celebrating.
All of that in 1 week.
I know, it was a bit much.
How did you pick what to celebrate?
Oh, celebrations every day.
That's great. That's great. And was that a nomination from your team, your manager, or did you nominate yourself?
Yeah, my manager put me up for it, which felt quite good.
Yeah, that's great, right?
Yeah.
It's fantastic to hear that you're doing great work.
Mm.
But then to get that sort of level of accolade.
Yeah, it felt good. I don't really like to be in the spotlight, so when they were like calling out my name, I was like inwardly dying a little bit. But reflecting on it now, it's quite cool.
Brilliant. I love that. Yeah, you're right. You did top it.
Yeah.
You did well there. Okay, so of course, in everyone's career, it's not always plain sailing.
Mm-hmm.
Were there any obstacles that you've faced in your career so far, and how have you overcome those obstacles, if there were any?
I think for me, it's more of sort of like a mental obstacle that I have, or that I had at least, because when I took the role as the apprentice, we had like a meet the CEO sort of lunch session thing, and I kind of...
Sounds very Alan Sugar, by the way.
Yeah. It was in the boardroom and everything.
Wow.
So it was quite Alan Sugar, really. And we kind of all were sat around the boardroom table with our CEO in the room, and I was kind of sat in the corner, and I was looking around the room, and I kind of thought like, okay, I am the only person of colour in the room. I might be a diversity hire, but if I am, I'm going to absolutely run with it and show why I was the best pick for the role. And it's kind of been me sort of telling myself in my head, no, Nav, maybe you were picked because you were just the best person for the role. You don't have to put this like deeper, darker meaning on it. And I think it's kind of just overcoming that, because, you know, like we said at the start, there's not enough people like us in the industry, and you definitely feel more part of something. If you can see more people like you, you definitely feel like there is more of a space for you. And at the start, I didn't see that. And that's why it's something that we're trying to change.
I think there's a lot in there, right? The reality is that even if you are a diversity hire, you're still the best person for that role, and maybe the best person for that role is a diversity hire, because the impact of that is that you're going to bring more people like you into the role, or they're going to get a perspective.
Yeah.
So I always think whatever role you get, you are the right person for that role.
Yeah.
And now you've got to take advantage of that, and it sounds like you are, with the work that you're doing with the PPA Next Gen Board. Take advantage of your position and your platform to help, you know, bring others to the table. That's brilliant.
Yeah, got to put a silver lining on it.
Yeah, put your gold stamp on it.
Yeah.
I like it. Okay, so what makes publishing a great industry to work in?
So from my perspective, in my role, I see it as, because I get to work with so many different teams and divisions and brands, it's so fun just to get to work across multiple brands, because I then learn so much about so many different things. Like in the podcast recordings that I do, I'm sitting there and I'm listening to what they're talking about, and they're all talking about, you know, completely different things. There was like one of the podcast that we have, Eco Chamber, they were talking about Thames Water and how they've been doing some naughty things and how it's going to then impact their customers' bills and stuff like that. And I was sat there and I was thinking, oh my gosh, I'm a Thames Water customer. I should really care about this. I should listen. And then the next recording that I do, listening to Management Today, and they were talking to a CEO who said that she was under so much stress in her job that she went out for dinner and went into cardiac arrest just because of how overworked she was and, you know, really prioritizing your mental well-being in your job. And I thought, well, that's something I need to keep an eye on. I've moved from quite a junior role to a senior role. I have a lot more responsibility. I need to make sure that I'm looking after myself in this as well. So I think getting to work with so many different sectors and divisions, it's really exciting to just learn what everyone else gets to know. And I know it's a cliche, but the people, you can't add more value to a job than the people that you get to meet and the people you get to spend time with and learn from. And everyone at Haymarket is so open to talk to you about what they know and are able to fill you with so much more information and share the knowledge that they have.
That's great.
Yeah.
So when you say everyone really likes each other, how close are you guys? You guys are living with each other? You guys...
No, not that far. I do have a friend that I've made at Haymarket who has quickly become my best friend, and she basically lives with me every weekend. And she, you know, she comes over and we play board games and eat junk food and watch TV. We went on holiday together.
Okay.
So
nice.
yeah, you do meet best friends.
Yeah, I think it's important because, you know, the fact is that if you're going down the apprenticeship route, you've not gone down the university route. A lot of people make their friends at university, or they have them at at school. But actually, I have to admit that I'm like you. I mean, I went to university, but I made a lot more friends during my career, and some of my closest friends, in fact, through work, right?
Yeah.
Like, and that's that there is a huge social element to publishing in the media industry.
Completely, and it's definitely something that I worried about when I decided not to go to university. It wasn't really like, oh no, I'm missing out on a great education. I was more thinking about I'm missing out on the university experience. But you know, doing an apprenticeship, I still kind of got that because there were still people my age that were in the exact same boat as me, and I've continued to meet people my age. Like Haymarket had a graduate scheme, and you know, these people are all my age. Yes, they are, you know, joining the company 3 or 4 years after me because they went to uni first, but I still get to meet people who are my age and, you know, go for a drink at the Patch after work with them and stuff like that. So I don't really feel like I'm missing out.
And the Patch is your local pub?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So that's where we can find you.
Yeah.
When anyone's trying to email you and they can't get hold of you,
I'm at the Patch.
You're at the Patch.
Yeah.
Very good. No, I like that. Thank you so much. What are you seeing in terms of trends in the industry?
It's an obvious one that I'm sure multiple people are going to say, but definitely the use of AI. I do think that people are still a bit afraid of it, but it's kind of one of those things where unless you try it out and experiment with it and just have a bit of fun with it, you're not really going to fully understand it. I mean, I use AI in my personal life quite a lot. I mean, I used it to write some Christmas cards because I was just like, well, you know, I can't be sat up all night trying to write 30 heartfelt messages in Christmas cards. I'll rely on ChatGPT a little bit for that.
It really makes every single message that you write from here on so personable.
Yeah. So my mum doesn't really listen to this. But actually, I'm not going to answer this question, Shez. I'm gonna let Robot Nav take over.
Okay, all right. Cue Robot Nav.
So not only am I using AI to clone my voice, which doesn't sound perfect, but I went for the quick clone option rather than spending 2 hours on my Friday evening reading out training scripts. But I've also asked it to help me write a script on why AI is beneficial to publishers. That probably makes it somewhat less of a reliable source of information. I'm essentially asking AI to complement itself, but let's see what it has to say. One of the biggest benefits of AI is how it can help personalize content. So AI can analyze what your readers prefer and how they behave, which means you can create articles that really resonate with them. It's all about crafting tailored newsletters or stories that speak directly to their interests. Another great thing is that AI can boost your research capabilities. It's really good at processing large amounts of data quickly, identifying trends and key insights that might take a person hours to find. This helps you stay ahead and ensures your content is timely and relevant. Let's not forget about the editing process. AI-driven editing tools can assist with grammar checks and style adjustments, which makes everything faster and more efficient. This way, your editorial team can focus on the creative side of things instead of getting bogged down by the little details. AI also enhances audience engagement through tools like chatbots and virtual assistants. These can provide instant responses to reader questions, creating a more interactive experience. It's like having a support team available around the clock, which really boosts reader satisfaction. Now, when it comes to distribution and marketing, AI can really optimize your efforts. It analyzes data to help you figure out the best times and platforms to share your content, ensuring it reaches your audience effectively. This means more eyes on your work and better engagement overall. Finally, AI helps with cost efficiency and scalability. By automating repetitive tasks, you free up your team to focus on strategy and creativity. And as your publication grows, these AI tools can scale with you, allowing you to produce more high-quality content without a huge increase in costs. So, these benefits really show how AI can transform special interest publishing, making it easier to connect with your audience and enhance the quality of your content.
Okay, all right. So, what's the impact of technology and digital transformation?
Well, for me, it's been great because I've got a job out of it, being podcasts. But I definitely think that the move to digital publishing, it's a good thing, right? Because if you're just relying on everything being in print, you're kind of putting a box around yourself, right? There's only so much that you can do in print. But if you move everything online, it opens up a whole new world for you. You're able to be so much more creative. You're able to test different ideas and stuff like that, and not really have that huge of like a limitation on you. And even with launching podcasts, like, we kind of see it as podcasts are sort of the perfect surrogate for print, because we got rid of all of our print mags and we've replaced them with podcasts, and that's kind of the perfect way for us to show the brand's tone of voice and their personality, and to give, you know, our audience a look in on the journalists and what they're doing, which used to be how it would come across in print, right? So it's, you know, we've gotten rid of print, but not really, because we've replaced it with something that is more accessible, that is easier to produce, cheaper to produce, doesn't chop down trees to produce, and, you know, I think it's a good thing.
I think so. I think that, you know, you saying that essentially that content comes to life.
Yeah.
And the sustainability component of it is certainly something that we're all talking about, right? What has that done in terms of the demographic? Do you still have the same audience of the magazine now listening to podcasts, or is it a different audience that you've managed to tap into?
No, we've definitely managed to tap into a new audience for sure, because I mean, our shows are all free, right? So anyone can listen to them. One of our brands, Planning Magazine, which is all about, you know, building regulations and planning applications and appeals and stuff like that, we've noticed that there's a proportion of our audience for that podcast that, you know, are just regular people, you know, trying to understand why their conservatory application got rejected and stuff like that, and want to listen to it to find out a bit more. We've got one of our podcasts, Mim's Learning, which kind of looks into different medical conditions and stuff like that. You've got a large portion of the audience that are kind of, you know, people that have been diagnosed with a condition that want to find out more about it. So they've, you know, searched the word, I'm going to go with the most recent episode, alopecia, into Spotify, and they found our podcast, and they're now learning from, you know, people who are writing about this topic and getting to learn more about it. So it's opened us up to a new audience. How we can then market to that audience and get those audience members to register to our brands and stuff like that, that's tomorrow's problem. But for now, we've got a good audience.
Great.
And we're helping people.
It certainly sounds like that. I think, you know, if you reflect back on the Thames Water component that you mentioned, building regulations, I mean, these are all topics that I'm totally interested in, to be honest with you, and there's no sarcasm intended there at all. So I think, you know, covering off everyday topics and being able to just listen into that while you're in the gym or walking somewhere or having a little bit of you time is extremely valuable.
Yeah.
Have you got any advice for the newbies in the industry, the newcomers into the publishing industry?
Yeah, I think it's advice that I would give younger 7 years ago, Nav. And it's, you don't have to know what you're trying to have as like your end game job as soon as you start your career, because I've moved around. You heard from my very long story how much I've moved around. I think, publishing doesn't have to just mean one thing. It's not just a writer, it's not just a marketer, a salesperson, or anything like that. You can definitely find such a broad range of jobs and careers in publishing that you don't have to just come into it with one idea of what you want to do and stay with it for the rest of your time. Move around, try different things, because the chances are you're not going to join publishing in one role and only stay siloed in that department, right? You're going to work with other people. If you're working in marketing, you'll have to work with the editorial teams, the events teams and stuff like that. And you might end up thinking, well, actually, I quite like the look of what they're doing over there. I wonder if maybe I could talk to them. And I'm sure everyone would be super willing to show you what they do, just like people have been willing to do that with me. So just because you have an idea of what you want to do, or even if you don't have an idea of what you do, get yourself in and then see where it takes you.
Firstly, that's great advice.
Thanks.
I should say that it's great advice. I think you're right. There are lots and lots of facets to publishing. When we talk about publishing, yeah, I mean, when I told my mum what I did for a living, she thought I was a journalist.
Mm-hmm.
It was very difficult for her to understand, well, if you're working for a newspaper group or you're working for a magazine, how could you be anything else but a journalist, right? So you're right. There's a lot of different roles within publishing. But what I quite like about your entry in was the apprenticeship as well,
Mm-hmm.
and then of course later on the entrepreneurial component in terms of building out this podcast studio and building out the notion of doing podcasts as well. Do you have any advice in terms of entering the industry?
Just see what's out there, because I think there are definitely lots of entry-level positions that are available, and when it launches, maybe look at our talent page that we've created. There's going to be a jobs board on there and different, sort of job families that you can look into and try and find where you think you best fit. But everyone's got skills, and skills can always be applied to a bunch of different things. Just because you think, oh, I'm best suited for actually producing content, you never know, you might actually be way better at marketing that content. And everyone starts somewhere. No one's a pro as soon as they are starting their career. Everyone's going to expect you to take a bit of time to learn, and there's nothing wrong with that. I hired 2 producers a year ago now, and they were both fresh out of university. And I had a hiring process where I spoke to other people who had experience in producing, but I preferred the energy of the 2 people that I had interviewed and that I had hired in the end more than the people that had the experience, because you can teach people skills. You can't teach people passion and a care for the job. That just has to come naturally. And I could tell that these 2 really cared about wanting the job and wanting to do well at it, and they've been so enthusiastic and keen to learn that I would put above someone with lots of experience any day.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely spot on. You've got to go for a job that you really want to do, and that's got to shine through in the interview process as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, very good advice, Nav. So if we were to summarize, what would you want the audience to take away from this conversation?
Publishing's great. What would I want people to take away? Just get stuck in, really, because you have to start somewhere, first of all, and publishing has really helped me actually get my career going. And it's one of those things that everyone always says, once you have a job in publishing, you tend not to leave. You kind of find your family here. And I can definitely see that for myself. I don't think that I could ever see myself going. I mean, I know like podcasting, that could take me anywhere, right? I could quit and work for Spotify tomorrow, I don't think I will, because I like the role that I've got for myself, and I like working with the people that I've found at Haymarket and across the whole of publishing. It's kind of like a big family, and once you get into it, you're going to love it.
It was a really good conversation, Nav. I genuinely really appreciate you being so open.
Thanks.
I think we have to put a little word into your manager saying, Nav's not going anywhere. Spotify can come knocking. She said
I'm
that
not
she's
listening,
staying
Spotify.
She's staying put. Genuinely, I really appreciate it. I think your journey is a very interesting one. And my personal key takeaway from it is, yeah, get stuck in. I think that's absolutely the right thing to say. But also, find your own path, right? And look around you and seek out opportunities. That whole thing about building out the podcasting, I know I've come to it a couple of times, but that's quite impressive. And one thing that I have noticed is that entire Next Gen board, including your good self, are super impressive. So thank you for sharing your story. Yeah, I'm looking forward to getting the feedback of everyone else that listens in or watches.